Hi, my name is Riley Allen. This is my review of Season 2, Episode 4 of Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, titled Web of the Dreamweaver, with an exclamation point at the end. So you really know that it's like screaming that title or some shit. I don't know. I think that's what the exclamation point means. I wasn't very good at English. I can speak the language pretty good. Just couldn't write very well. I can speak the words and understand the words. It's the spelling that trips me up. And the exclamation point, the period, all the apostrophes and the... Ugh. My skill at English aside, the episode starts off with this man in a dream of a maze, which I guess is like which I guess is supposed to be the web. Frankly, the title would have been better as the Maze of the Dreamweaver, or something like that, or whatever. So this guy kind of goes mad and just straight booking it out the door madly, while his wife is just like, it's the middle of the night, so his wife gives no fucks. She's trying to get her beauty sleep, fair enough. Then we, of course, get the mystery gang, kicking out Marcy, Hot Dog Water, because, it was only the 5 of them, the 4 teenagers and the dog. I'm going to be honest, that van could fit all 6 of them in there. It'd be a little cramped, but they'd fit. Personally, I just don't think they all liked Hot Dog Water that much. And then Velma goes out, after Hot Dog Water, and is like, Marcy, I voted for you. I was advocating for you. I wanted you to stay. The tension between these two people. There was more romantic chemistry between these two, in a sense, than there was between Ellie and Manny in the second Ice Age movie, which I just watched and did a review on. So that's the one that's freshest in my mind. That is the connection freshest in my mind for this. Which is sad, because a second later, Marcy's character breaks, when she calls Mr. E and says, yeah, shit happened just like you said it would. They kicked me out and threw me to the curb. Which brings to question, what would Marcy have done if they didn't kick her out? Like, they just had another adventure and she was on it. Would she have slowly turned away from Mr. E? I feel like if this show was... they knew they were going to have a 3rd season, I feel like we could have had more for that. But since this is the second, and at this point, they didn't know if they'd have a 3rd season, which I think, considering how they mostly wrap things up, they don't. They didn't think they would, or they didn't think they needed it. They wanted to wrap this up pretty quickly, so, I understand it, but I kind of would have liked more of her, maybe an episode or 2 of her being in the gang still, and just being indecisive. Mr. E, the mystery gang. So we get some interactions between Fred and Daphne while they're trying to solve the mystery, and Daphne's basically, she wants to be friends, I understand Daphne. The bridge between her and Fred was pretty burned pretty violently, and then her last relationship with Baylor Hutner, ended roughly, so to say. So, and then what happened to the first guy happened again. This woman's in the dream maze. She gets caught and she wakes up and says that the secret recipe of her cornbread is that there's no corn in it. So does that mean it's just bread? Now I'm interested. Like, how is it cornbread but no corn? Like, is there no cornmeal in it? Or I think that's how regular cornbread is made. I don't know. So is it just like bread with some yellow food coloring? some bean corn, some bean, is it beans? I don't know how that would work. Anyway, so she gets arrested because it's apparently fraud, which, side note, actually could be a case, I suppose. Like, maybe not arresting, I don't know the laws about it, but actually maybe. Because if they don't have the ingredients on the back, someone could, they obviously had to substitute, like, the corn or whatever with something, but that something might be something that someone's allergic to. And them not putting on the thing is basically, a lawsuit waiting to happen. But I don't know if this is actually a crime, but this might just be Bronson Reed. Sheriff Bronson Reed. No, not Bronson Reed. I'm thinking of wrestling. Bronson Stone. Is it Bronson Stone? I know it's not Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed is a wrestler with WWE. Pretty sure it's... Anyway. We get a kind of a flash. We find out that they're all connected. Sheriff, the first guy, this lady with the cornbread, and another dude, Daphne's neighbor. They were all nerds together as children playing a knockoff version of Dungeons and Dragons. For some reason, it's always funnier when they have something that's clearly Dungeons and Dragons and they give it a weird name because they don't want to pay licensing to the people who own Dungeons and Dragons. And that's always far better than them just saying, oh yeah, we were playing Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I think in Gravity Falls, it was, it was something, and more something. I can't remember what it was. Anyway. They get to this dude's house, and right as it explodes, like, why? Then Sheriff begs them to protect him, and we get a flashback where it's them four as children. It's Sheriff and the three victims as children. And, they're all playing, and, they do little kid things like joking around, but Sheriff, he's the dungeon master, and he gets real serious. And he basically pulls a Cartman like, hey, guys, if you don't play nice, I'm going to take my ball and go home. Is it Cartman? I think that is from South Park, but I can't know if it's Cartman. I don't watch South Park. He, of course, falls asleep because they entrusted Shaggy and Scooby with him to watch him. Anyways, it's found out that the Dreamweaver was created by him, of course, from the flashback. And they end up, escaping. And then they realize that the Dreamweaver that Sheriff created was right-handed, but those Dreamweaver in the dreams is left-handed, which tells them that the person who did this is actually Hobart from the first victim, who created a helmet that allows him to invade their REM sleep or something, and he used them. It cost him millions of dollars, which he stole from his bank, and yeah. Side note, this is a bit iffy, but if he had this idea, couldn't he, try to go out to investors? Companies and whatnot, and see, and, go about trying to get investors to invest in it? I don't know. Anyways. They end up arresting him. And also, a funny recurring gag that I loved was everybody saying, I loved that so-and-so more than my own children. Oof. I kind of felt like that it didn't overstay its welcome. It was funny each and every time. It ends with them coming home to Fred's house, which is usually a pigsty and it's clean. So they're like, when did you get a maid? I didn't get a maid. And it's Brad and Judy, the two former mystery gang members. Side note, they both look older than I imagined. So I imagine they left at like 8 after school. So like I imagine they had Fred in their 20s. Like that's, I think, normal from mid-20s. So like say 25. They had Fred at 25. Let's go with that number. And Fred is 18. Let me do 30. They'd be less than 50. Quick math says they'd be less than 50. So 25. You know, and Brad looks like he's a grandfather. It's the white hair they gave him. He looks like he is Fred's grandfather. More than anything. They both kind of look older than Mr. E and Angel Dynamite, which shouldn't be the case because they're all supposed to be the same age. Mr. E doesn't look exactly old per se, he just looks fat. And I think he's got some gray in him, but you know, that's that. Overall, I'm going to give this episode a solid 8 out of 10. I loved that the sheriff was actually an active part of it. I love that it furthered the Daphne and Fred storyline a little bit. It furthered the Fred storyline with him finally finding his parents. I like the jokes. And this is one of the few villains I can actually see, you know, becoming a villain for that reason. Not in the sense that, for what he did. Mind you, he did all this for the first guy did all this because his character in Dungeons & Dragons was killed. This man held on to that shit for like 30 years minimum. I don't know. He held that shit on him for years. And it's better if he'd have just been like a bank robber or something. Like they mentioned that he spent millions making that helmet. So it'd have been better if he just, you know, was a bank robber or something. Like, he needed to pay the money. Like, mentioned that he couldn't get investors. So he borrowed, air quotes, the money. But, you know, that's that. Thanks for watching the video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe if you want, and I'll see you in the next video.